Presented by Edge Radio.
Hello and welcome to Media Shower with your hosts of the most, Lochie and Qom.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Qom?
Very well, actually. We've got a great show today to review.
I'm personally excited. I'm a little bit speechless, but yet filled with what's the word I want to?
Joy.
Well, that is one way to describe it. But besides me getting confused with all the wording, let us get into today's review. Smiling Friends Season 2. This is a long-awaited season in my views. Although, by technicality standards, it's not really long. It's, 3 or 2 year gap?
It's been that long. I thought it was only a year.
Yeah, it only feels like it has been a year or so, but no, I think it's been like 2 or 3 years, but I can't be exact on that.
Okay, it's probably because we just rewatched the first season over and over and over again and waiting for the second season.
Well, I basically have been addicted since... Oh, God. I got into the show, unfortunately, rather late. I did hear about it when it first came out. Like, I was aware of the co-creator Michael Cusack's artwork beforehand, and was already an immediate fan, and was just totally curious about the show to begin with. And until the day I finally was able to watch it, I was just so happy, and it's surprisingly turned into something a lot more bigger than I would have ever imagined, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I've described this show as kind of a small audience, but like a big cult following. I see the memes everywhere. I see the clips everywhere online.
Very, very dedicated following.
Yeah, people remaking the show with puppets, remaking the show with Lego, cutting the show into Star Wars bits, all the different characters in Star Wars.
Yeah, it is getting really creative what people are doing, whether it's memes, recreational purposes, or artistic visuals. It's amazing, and Season 2 has brought the hype up immensely with not only its returning favorite fan characters, but surprisingly enough, extended lore, which not many people were aware of, or at the very least were considering themselves getting into when going into Season 1. But when you watch it back after looking Season 2, you start to realize in some ways, okay, maybe there is a bit of a link up here to some degree.
Yeah, the characters are given a bit more personality as you go on their own individual behaviour. Some are kind of smarter than the others. And Alan made rocket boots. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, let's not forget that Alan made rocket boots.
The boss goes a bit more extreme. But yeah, when you rewatch the first season, it doesn't feel like they change, really. It's kind of more just gives oomph to their character.
It doesn't feel like it expands or takes away from it. It feels like it's filling in their characters very nicely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, if I don't mean to interrupt, but there is one theme in Season 2 that people have been going on discussion as of recently, is that certain characters from the previous season could be from one of the lands of Smiling Friends, if you will. There's, I guess the real world, and it's multiple different wacky, charming worlds, if you will. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, they kind of go to different areas like Spamtopia, or they go to the Princess's Kingdom in the first season.
The Enchanted Forest, yeah.
Yeah, the Enchanted Forest. And really they're parodies of kind of other genres. Like Spamtopia was like just if the internet was a actual location, I guess.
Actual living society.
Yeah, there's terrible dial-up connections and things everywhere in that episode. But
Yeah, and going back onto the discussion of the previous season, there are two characters who are specifically could originate from Spamtopia, and there is further evidence to suggest that there is dialogue from the first season, which I don't know if this was personally both planned by Michael and Zach, but if it were, or if was, then kudos to them. Like, that was smart thinking, just as like some little throwaway joke in the first season turning into something quite more expansive.
yeah,
And people want to look more into it. Like some minor characters like the Funtime twins from the 5th episode of season 1, they're rumored to be from, as you said, Spamtopia, because of their very weird mannerisms, excuse my watch, and very fast body language, if you will.
yeah,
which is-
absolutely.
Which is half the humor, in my opinion, and half the charm of it.
I do think we better get to the premise. It's kind of very basic. There's a company, and it's their job to make people smile. And every episode we see Charlie and Pim, maybe some of
main
the other
characters?
characters. Yeah, Charlie and Pim are the main characters, but they've got a team behind them.
You've got Alan, and you've got Glep as well, and you've got their lovable Mr. Boss.
Yeah. And that's kind of the premise. It's very basic. They just go on a different adventure every episode.
What
It's-
seems like a very basic premise on paper, but yet seems to flawlessly execute in a surprising manner.
It's on Adult Swim, but it's also, interestingly, it is made by Michael Cusack, who you mentioned before. So he's an Australian animator, probably one of the more famous ones at the moment. And he made Koala Man, he made YOLO Crystal Castle.
And most famously, the old YouTube skit Damo and Darren Siggy Butt Brain.
Yeah, so we've reviewed his stuff before just because he is
He's a well-known icon in Australian media for the last decade, we'll say.
Yeah.
Well, more than a decade.
And then the other creator is Zach Hadel, I
Who
believe. That's
he
correct.
has been around, I found out, throughout the internet for a very long time during the Newgrounds era, which he was, I believe, an animator for Newgrounds at the time.
I guess. I just knew he was a big YouTuber and he makes animations on YouTube.
But then he got into a sort of a current day version of Game Grumps called Only Plays with a bunch of other guys named Chris, Tomar, and I can't remember some of the other cast members.
Yeah. So that's kind of a very basic premise. Two kind of very internet savvy creators. That comes up in the episodes a lot. Was there a favourite episode for you, Lochie? Or maybe we'll just go through them one by one.
We can go quickly through one by one if you wish.
Episode 1 has Gwimbly.
Which has a very long title, which we will not go through. But think of it as like, how do I say this?
Kind of like a 1990s game character.
Like forgotten, and people don't technically remember him that
Is a
well.
has-been.
Well, yeah, most people would say.
And they find him drunk on the street and they recognise him, and it's their job to try and make him to smile. So they're trying to get him back in contact with the game company, and
But
we
the
kind of said the darker side of the game company that
Where the
kicked him out.
CEO becomes very selfish and greedy in more ways than one.
Absolutely. I thought this was a great opening episode.
Yeah,
One
great.
thing they do great is they combine the cartoon aesthetic with
Actual,
3D animation.
when it comes to the looks of almost like early PlayStation, Nintendo 64 era of video gaming, which is very interesting in the way how it is specifically animated with 2D characters like Pim and Alan.
Yeah. And they have other episodes, they have live action characters in there as well. It's an interesting that they combine all those different aesthetics together.
Which is what brings more of the charm in the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought this was a great opening, and I thought the second episode was even better. I'm a huge Mike Bichetti fan. For years I've watched his stuff. He's a very eccentric guy, let's say.
And I guess if you're into the more humorous side of politics, if you will, you'll more likely get a kick out of this.
Yeah.
It's the presidential debate episode, if you will.
They have to make the president smile, and so he's running for election, and he's probably the most useless president there is.
And he is competing with a returning fan favorite character, Mr. Frog. Which I was proud to see my boy Mr. Frog back.
Yeah, let's hope we get a Mr. Frog episode every season, I think.
Please, Michael and Zach, please, I beg you.
But Mike Bichetti, I think, was hilarious in this. He played the perfect role. He's a very, he's kind of a, how do I say this politely? He's kind of a bit of an obese buffoon. He's often just used as...
But he has a charming charisma, regardless of how, I guess, he acts his performance, whether he's trying to, I guess, act professional or act like a buffoon.
Yeah. So even I noticed one of the lines in the episode, they don't subtitle anything until like one or two lines they have to subtitle because it's just so incoherent. You can't understand what he's saying
just
at all.
mumbling, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's funny. There's Mike again, you know. He's just mumbling through his lines. He's completely forgetting them. Yeah, that's a great episode. The Lamb President.
I'm gonna be the money president.
That's probably one of my favorite, I think, of the entire series. And maybe it is because I've got a soft spot in my cold heart for Mike Bichetti, but really great episode, I thought. And it is done as him with a live action character in this 2D world.
Which was, again, impressive, and I applaud both Michael and Zach for trying to do something like that in modern adult cartoons, which is not very common.
Yeah.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, do you want to skip to episode 3? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. We'll go to the next one. We'll segue into the Alan adventure. So Alan's always been like a side character.
And this time he now gets his fully fleshed out episode. It may not, I guess, be in tone or explore upon his character, but it sure does give a nice impression of what Alan is, well, like outside of the Smiling Friends workspace.
Yeah.
And just to see him getting such involved in like Hollywood tick box antics is so just humorous to me. And the return of another fan favorite character, DJ Spit, returns, which was a treat to see as well.
A really good episode once again. Can you do an impersonation of the final of when he meets his landlord?
Hello, Alan. Are you looking for these? And yes, I will say that the landlord is now my favorite character of the Smiling Friends universe. I genuinely do not believe he is a threat of society. I genuinely believe he just wants a friend who wants to smoke weed and fill bellies with diet soda and play Burnout Revenge for the PS2.
You should get a job on this show, like you can do half the characters already.
Oh, well, that would be the dream.
We'll send in the resume.
Please.
Yeah, another good episode, I thought.
Episode 4, it was the Mr. Boss getting married episode?
Yeah.
Quotation in question marks, might we add. So, the premise of the episode is Mr. Boss is getting married to the daughter of Satan. And him and Charlie are having their suspicions of whether or not she is a good person, being the fact that, well, she's the daughter of Satan. What else do you need to know? And Charlie and him go on a little murder mystery investigation, almost Scooby-Doo kind of, if you will, just to find out what her deed truly is. And it turns out she wants to suck the soul right out of Mr. Boss. And more ways than one, but we will not explain.
This episode, I don't know. It was... I
enjoy-
thought it was average. I enjoyed it. But I thought compared to the rest, it just didn't hit those highs that the others do.
But you got to admit, the appearance of the nostalgia critic, Doug Walker himself,
actually.
is brilliant.
Yeah, maybe I'd take it all back, actually.
Like, that
Nostalgic-
one scene alone is gold. I do not care what people say. That scene just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, Nostalgia Critic's a very famous YouTube reviewer, and they often have these online celebrities appear, and the Nostalgia Critic was just perfect as
A very perfect candidate.
Yeah, and they even parody the awful things of YouTube. Like, he opens with, maybe it was a Dollar Shave Club ad or something like that.
Which, might I add, actually goes through the entire video until, like, the last 10 seconds he gives out a proper answer.
It was pretty gold.
Which is like, yeah, it feels like that's what half of YouTube is nowadays, but that's a whole different story for another day that I will not get into.
Well, in the following episode, number 5, they have Joel Haver, who's also another YouTube animator.
Now, I'm not particularly aware of this YouTuber, but I have been aware of the animation style, almost as if it's like stop motion, but AI materialized using real life photos and almost like Microsoft Paint animation. It's weird.
It's a real interesting method. You film, then you outline a few frames. You essentially draw over what you've filmed or what you've photographed. And then the AI replaces every single frame in a similar manner. There is a word for it, I can't remember, but...
Anyway, that's one of the side characters, and...
it's an interesting method, and they use that in this episode.
The plot of this one is that Pim and Charlie have to make a mad scientist smile, but it turns out that the mad scientist is being kicked out by his older brother. I can't remember if he's older or younger.
Yeah. A good episode, I thought. I thought this one still felt a bit... I mean, after the first two, these kind of feel a little average, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I still enjoy... Every episode I loved. But they just kind of... They fall flat a little.
But there's the whole discussion of the whole homunculus thing, like, and that is a whole different box of nails that is apparently... I don't think that's the best phrase for it, but like you probably... It's just like a whole world that is far beyond anything that's we could imagine, but yet
I had to look up...
The co-producer, Zach Hadel, has a very particular fashion about these homunculus, and yeah, it's fun. It's funny in a very supernatural, almost. Is it real or is it just bullshit type sense? Excuse my language.
Yeah, I had never heard of this before, and I had to look it up. And it's essentially like a human cross a chicken, I believe. And there's a whole bunch of people.
Which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
That's right. There's a whole bunch of weird YouTube videos of people claiming they crack an egg and there's a homunculus inside. All these weird ass videos. I'd never heard of it. Probably don't look it up. We shouldn't have mentioned it. I was kind of horrified. It was one of those weird corners of the internet. I went, oh, there's some people who are serious about this. I don't want to know the method about how you cross a chicken and an egg either, but
yeah, no,
that's what the episode follows, essentially.
And episode 6 is Charlie and Pim supposedly go to out in a cornfield where Pim's friends are alien enthusiasts, which turns out the alien enthusiasts are background characters from the Halloween episode, but it's more or less if you blink, you're gonna miss them type thing.
Okay, yeah, I didn't pick up on that at all.
Yeah, I only found out like a couple days ago, Anyway, the premise of that is Charlie and Pim get kidnapped. By thinking, oh, this is just fake. But no, they get kidnapped by real aliens. But it turns out they're not just aliens; they're frat boys.
Pretty much, yeah. It starts almost like a horror, and then the alien approaches and he says, "You got a light, man." And they go on this big party adventure across space. And a few twists and turns.
Unfortunately, destroying a uncivilized planet and a very controversial topic at the end. We won't spoil anything involved with that, but we'll just allow you to discuss that for yourselves.
I got a great laugh at the end. We'll
yeah,
say
that
It's a good
admittedly,
twist.
that was a great laugh
Yeah.
and a good twist.
Episode
7. What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, episode 7, the magical red jewel, aka Tyler gets fired.
And obviously, right off the bat, unfortunately, Tyler gets fired, which is
Poor Tyler.
probably one of the saddest moments I think I've ever seen in an adult animation history. Poor Tyler.
Shout out to Tyler.
But the premise of that episode is Mr. Boss is found a specific red jewel that he's in need of. But the problem is that the seller that he's buying it off speaks a completely different language that he's not aware of, known as Spam-ish with an M. So they go to the land known as Spamtopia, which, like Qom stated earlier, is basically how if the internet were basically a civilization, which in hindsight is, if you know certain base of internet culture, you will get a real kick out of this, and I particularly did, and it was a real treat for me.
Yeah.
Like the
I
older text-to-speech voices, like especially ones from the olden days, like even go low pitch and to high pitch, almost like Spooderman type thing, if you will.
A very nostalgic episode, I thought. Yeah, it was real nice. It's a very Pim and Mr. Boss focused episode as well. I think Charlie and Alan have about 2 or 3 lines, and it's just Charlie telling him to go away, essentially. But yeah, it's a great episode. And then I think they finish really strong in episode 8, the final episode of the season.
Which might be a misleading title, but don't let it fool you.
Most of them are misleading titles, and most of them, the descriptions have nothing to do with the episode. It's an unusual trick they use, but I guess it's to keep you surprised when you watch.
The episode's titled Pim Turns Green, but it's actually more or less a Christmas episode. And spoiler alert, the only time he wears green is his Christmas sweater.
Yeah.
The actual premise of the episode is Pim accidentally brings a snowman to life and asks what are the qualities of life itself. So Pim has to share this poor snowman what are the qualities of life, and unfortunately the concept of death, which freaks the snowman out to the point where Charlie and Pim have to relocate him over and over again until the snowman just tries to accept fate. And then somehow, due to a turn of a series of events, becomes the entirety of the ocean. And that's how we end the series.
Yeah. I thought ended on a high, really good episode.